Welcome back. The other top focus story at this hour, we are going to talk about how the language debate has reignited today with the Tamil Nadu finance minister giving us an exclusive interview and, of course, making a very clear statement about the three-language policy. The minister says three-language policy makes no sense. Rashtrabhasha debate is a distraction. Now, soon after that statement, in an exclusive interview with Mirror Now, came another controversial statement from the Tamil Nadu Higher Education Minister. And he said, and I quote, "If the argument that learning Hindi could open more employment opportunities was true, then why are those speaking the language selling Pani-Puri?" Of course, the minister later clarified that his intention was not to hurt Hindi speakers. So just to give our viewers a context, there is an ongoing debate over the implementation of the Hindi language across the country, and we'll play those court plates for you to show you what different prominent leaders, actors, prominent citizens from the southern states in particular have been saying. Let's start with what the Union Home Minister said. People from different states should speak in Hindi, not English. So what the minister is suggesting, that if at all there has to be a common language beyond your mother tongue, it should be Hindi. Let's look at some of the other statements that have come. M.K. Stalin, in fact, said, does Amit Shah think Hindi states are enough and Indian states are not needed? So clearly, there is an insinuation of an imposition of Hindi. Sudeep, the Kannada actor, waded into the controversy where he said Hindi is no more our national language. And to that, of course, we all remember, came a quick response from actor Ajay Devgan, who again reiterated, erroneously though, that Hindi is our national language. He said, why do you dub your mother tongue movies in Hindi? Hindi was, is and always be our mother tongue and our national language. The debate went on from there. Of course, multiple people, Sonu Nigam saying, do we have no problems in this country that we are looking for more? So the singer believes that this is an unnecessary controversy. Look at our neighbors, and we are creating divisions in India by saying, you are Tamilian, you speak Hindi. Why? So, you know, a cross-section of people, and we'll keep playing out those for our viewers to get the context why we have taken up this issue, because this, of course, concerns all of us living in this country, with a section of people who believe that this is an imposition, and the fact that the BJP-led centre is pushing for Hindi's pan-India use, and the southern states are vehemently opposing it. It's not just in Tamil Nadu. A wave of debates and discussions, even in social media, has been going on, and I read out some of those statements. So let's, in fact, go straight to our guests this evening. Joining us here in the program is Indrajit Lankesh, an Indian filmmaker and producer and director. Also joining us, Bhavna Ramanna, actor-producer. Thank you so much Namaste. Thank you for joining us here on The Big Focus. So I want to come to the two of you, to get your informed opinion about this. Indrajit Lankesh, coming to you first. The question of, I'm going to be the devil's advocate here, the question of practical difficulties. Yes, we are a multitude of states. Not all of them speak Hindi. But what is the problem in having having Hindi, for instance, as a language that binds us all? I'll give you a personal example. I wrote a mail to the Mumbai traffic police about a congestion point, and I got a response in Marathi. Obviously, I cannot understand written Marathi. So isn't there an issue of how we can have a common language, accept it? What is the problem in learning another language over and above your mother tongue? In fact, I should say, what is the problem with someone like me learning Marathi and understanding it?
Yeah, why, Afrida? That's the whole question I'm asking. We are staying in Maharashtra, Mumbai, and Maharashtra and Mumbai, Marathi is the language they speak in kind of mass language is Marathi. So why don't we learn Marathi at the time and learn that language and speak that language, for instance? And if you're in Karnataka, Kannada is our language. And of course, Kannada has got a history of more than 1,000 years. And why
2,500 years.
Kannada? Yeah, more than 1,000 years, I said, in fact. Yeah, so why don't we learn Kannada for that matter? That's the whole idea. And in fact, when it comes to Tamil Nadu's education minister's code, for every action, there is equal and opposite reaction, Newton's third law. If you're trying to impose Hindi into the Dravidian states like Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, of course, you're going to get a response like this. And when you see Hindi movies, in fact, from the day of Padosan to Chennai Express, the South characters, in fact, are caricaturish. they make caricaturish of the South kind of characters. And that's the way when they treat the South Indian language or the characters or the films like that, that's the action and the response and the reaction.
No, but this is happening now from the other side as well. Let's play that out. What the higher education minister had to say. No, I'll come back to you, Mr. Lankesh. Let's, you are saying that there is caricaturing of southern characters, but now to say that Hindi-speaking people are selling Pani-Puris after all, how is it Hindi such an asset or your qualification? Let's listen into that. I'll come to you.
Anna has told அவர் ஒரு உதாரணம் சொன்னார். பூனை போறதுக்கு ஒரு வழி இருக்கு. அந்த பூனை போற வழியிலேயே ஏன்னா நம்ம பேர் சொன்னாங்க ஹிந்தி படிச்சா வேலை கிடைக்குதா? ஹிந்தி நம்ம ஊர்ல கோயம்புத்தூர்ல போய் பாருங்க, பான்பூரி வச்சுக்கிறோம், எந்த கடை யாரு எல்லாம் அவன்தான். ஆக அது ஒரு காலம். இப்ப ஆங்கிலம் இன்டர்நேஷனல் லாங்குவேஜ். பூனை போடுறதுக்கு ஒரு வழி இருக்கு, அந்த வழியா பூனை போகலாம். அதுல இன்னொரு நான் என்ன பண்ணான், அந்த வீட்டுக்காரன் பூனை போறதுக்கு ஒரு வழியை ஓட்ட போட்டு எலி போறதுக்கு ஒரு சின்ன ஓட்ட போட்டான். இந்த எதுக்கு அந்த சின்ன ஓட்ட போடுறேன்னு ஒருத்தர் கேட்டான் பக்கத்து வீட்டுல. எலி போறதுக்கு ஏன்னா பூனை போற ஓட்டையிலே எலி போகாதா? We are learning international language English. What is the need for another language?
So, of course, to be fair to the minister, there's a clarification as well where he said that I don't intend to hurt the sentiments of Hindi-speaking public. Mr. Lankesh, you were adding something to your last statement.
Yeah, see, that's the whole idea. When you're trying to impose, in fact, we've got a history of how they impose language in the education system in Tamil Nadu and Karnataka. And the same way, in fact, recently, we have spent 6 crores in the United Nations to promote Hindi. Why do you want to promote Hindi? In fact, when Narendra Modi ji went to Denmark, did he speak to his counterpart in Hindi when he's in the garden in Copenhagen? No, it was English whom he speak to. And most
so you're saying it's an English versus Hindi debate. You're saying that ultimately the toss-up is between whether Hindi should be the common language or English. Is that what you are looking at as?
English, because see, majority of the so-called ministers today, their children study abroad in the high-class, high-tech universities in the United States and London. And the poor people in India, you want them imposing Hindi on them.
Isn't that an elitist idea? Are you aware that the percentage of people who speak English is very minuscule in this country? So you might be accused of being very elitist about it. You might be accused of having a colonial hangover, of batting for a European language over what is Desi, what is indigenous. How would you respond to that?
First, when they come to Karnataka or Tamil Nadu, their mother tongue, what they speak, in fact, in majority is Kannada and Tamil. So they should learn Tamil or Kannada or Telugu. And
no, that is another argument altogether. Here we are saying what should be a common language? What should be the language that binds us all? Bhavna Ramanna, isn't this a question of unity in diversity? There can be multiplicity. No, I'll come to you.
So it's automatically taken English as a common language on its own.
Just give me one
unity in diversity.
I'll come back to you. No, I want to just simply understand. Let me put my question to you. I'll give you time to respond. My question is that on one hand, it's about bridging the gaps. It's about having a language where we can communicate. Language, after all, is for communication. And, celebrate the differences as well.
No,
language is not just about a communication. Language talks of everything about us. It speaks about the land where we have grown up. It reflects our culture. It reflects the cultural background that we have grown up in. And we start to thinking in the same language where we have grown up and the language we've been taught ever since we are born. So it also connects you with it has a bonding when you have a language, mother tongue. And especially when it comes to Karnataka, especially cities like Bangalore, in Bangalore, we have to now try teaching our children to learn our own mother language. Now it's come to that state. Now it's already, English has taken over already. Now the second thing is now you really have to bang upon you're piling another language where the kids are going to be completely confused with the whole thing. See, language is something one has to kind of develop an interest. It's an art. It's an art to learn languages. It's an art to know about other languages.
No,
With
nobody
the
is
language,
disputing
it
that.
also
My
comes with
question
the
is, how
culture.
does it become a threat to your own identity? How does it become a threat
It
to your
does.
mother
It is-
tongue
I mean, it shouldn't be
if we
forcefully
also
piled
accept
up on
Hindi
us.
as
It
a
shouldn't be
common language?
forcefully banged. It is already a threat because we South Indians, we are very proud to be South Indians because for thousands and thousands of years, we've held upon to our culture and the kind of language we've been speaking. So as the food also. So everything about us, it really, even our dressing, everything about us, it talks about where we are from. So we
So
don't
you are
really
saying there is a
hesitant and
threat.
we are not
Already
hesitant
the
about it.
languages, the regional languages are facing threat with the onslaught of English language. You are saying now if there is additional burden of children to learn Hindi, that will further push
Yes,
our
because-
regional
and in
languages
South
down
India itself, we have
into
to- we
oblivion.
have to
I
learn
get your
multiple
point. Thank
languages
you.
just
I
to
get
be-
your point, Bhavnaji. I will just put another question to Indrajit Lankesh about, the fact of the matter is that there are conspiracy theorists, and let's be very wary of them because there are those who will say that, okay, today it's national language, tomorrow it'll be national religion. I have heard those. So, should we also not refrain from that kind of fear mongering? Wouldn't that be very unhealthy to, make it about, an imposition to that extent?
No, why should you, Afrida, why should you impose Hindi into the Dravidian South Indian states wherein there is a history of our own language? Kannada has got, as Bhavna said, more than 2,500 years old history. The literators, in fact, 8 Jnanapith winners are from Karnataka with their own Kannada, with our own Kannada literature. Literature has a history, has a culture, has a background. And why should we forget Kannada or why should we start a new Hindi language? Why? But at the same time, as Nelson Mandela put it, Nelson Mandela has said that if you talk to a man in a language he understands, that goes to his head. If you talk to him in his own language, that goes to his heart. So that's the difference. Exactly. If you talk in Hindi,
I get
to me,
all that. I take your
head.
point, but I don't understand the aversion towards Hindi. I don't understand that. There shouldn't be any aversion. There should be acceptance, isn't it? I understand. And I'll also give you another argument on your behalf that there is a fear, there's a political angle to this. That the attempt is to make inroads to the southern bastion so that Hindi is understood. After all, that is an area, a non-Hindi speaking area, and the bulk of the vote banks for the ruling party comes from the Hindi belt, so that the medium becomes a hurdle. So there's that political angle as well. But all I'm saying is, why not be accepting of another language as a language that can bind us all? Bhavna ji.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, this is not a question of acceptance, ma'am. It's about Mr. Indrajit also. He has directed a film in Hindi. I myself have lived in Bombay. So it is not about acceptance. We accept. We all are Indians, irrespective of the caste, creed, and the color and the language. It's all the same. And we just together, that is it. But the question is, please do not pile it on us. Please do not force us to change ourselves. That is not something which is really natural. What is natural is just with the land itself, we get so many fragrances of life that also with the language. Food, language, khana, pina, pehne ka dhang, rehna, everything is connected to this. So it is not about acceptance. We accept. There is no question about it. We accept. But please do not force it upon us. Do not force it upon our children too. It is going to be too much of a
and that is the general sentiment, ma'am, coming
is,
from the southern states, right from the leadership to artists like yourself. Yes, let's listen into what the finance minister of Tamil Nadu had to say exclusively to Mirror Now, weighing in on this issue. Let's play that out, please.
I've already explained clearly why it makes no sense to have a 3-language formula. And most people agree that you must start with your mother tongue. So the real question is, should you stop with the second language? And if so, what is the second language? And I think it's been explained beyond any doubt that you clearly want a language that is easily, that adds value to your movement and communications and job around the world. And that's much more English than anything else.
Okay, yes, Mr. Lankesh, if I can come to you on that, the problem then is about the hierarchy, isn't it? What is your first language? What is your second language? What is your third language? And most people in South believe that English should be the second language. Also, it has attached to it implications of job prospects abroad. Now, do you go by that argument as well?
No, I appreciate Tamil Nadu, the way they fight for the language, the way they love for the language. In fact, in Karnataka, there is not even 3-language policy or 2-language policy. We don't even, our children don't even study Kannada as their first or second or third language today.
True.
It's no more compulsory because the private institutions went to court and they brought in a stay. So our children, in fact, the children's whoever is studying now are not even learning Kannada. And in this kind of a state, they'll forget Kannada literature, Kannada culture. And one more thing, when he says that if you learn Hindi, you'll have to sell pakodas. In fact, on a lighter vein, with a zest, I want to say, what's wrong in selling Pani-Puri? I'm sorry, not pakodas, Pani-Puri. As Modi himself said, what's wrong in selling pakoda?
Pani-Puri is also very yummy. We don't want to
what's wrong in selling pakoda? That's what Modi said. What's wrong in selling Pani-Puri?
I totally agree. I mean, no job is a small job. So that argument doesn't sizzle here.
The most authentic Pani-Puris.
I totally agree. But then the larger question is he's linking the language debate to employment prospects.
What's wrong in selling pakoda? That's what Modi said.
No, yes, we do agree. But, he's making a larger point there. He's saying that, like you said, and like we heard the minister saying, that English probably will give better prospects to our children. So do not impose Hindi. And there again is a problem. I do agree that the Union Home Minister, even in the Northeast, announced that right up to class 10, Hindi will be compulsory. He said 70% of the agenda of the cabinet is prepared in Hindi, so students must learn. And the language right from the school years. It was met with resistance in the Northeast as well, just like we heard prominent voices from the South. Last word to Bhavna Ramanna, quick last word and we wind up. Go ahead, ma'am.
Ma'am, even the researchers have said, if at all we are taught, every child is taught the mother tongue, their brain capacity will grow much more higher and higher, and the capacity in working and learning, everywhere it goes high. So I think nothing like our own mother tongues. I will stick to my own mother tongue. Yes, of course. Kannada, Jayavagali, Yavaglu Irate Nam Jote, Shashwatavagi. Namaskaraಗಳು, ವಂದನೆಗಳೊಂದಿಗೆ.
Oh, wow, wonderful. And yes, we can all do our bit to promote our regional languages. I come from Assam. My language is Assamese. So we must do our bit to, let our languages thrive. But at the same time, let's create an atmosphere of acceptance while, we carry on with this debate and discussion. A healthy discussion is always welcome. Thank you so much for joining us here, Mr. Indrajit Lankesh and Bhavna Ramanna. Appreciate your giving us time.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks a lot.